Okay, welcome. So this is episode 44, Freedom Hustles podcast. My name is John Banks. I'm with Andy Lehman, both from the Freedom Skills Academy.
Hello.
Hello, Andy. How you doing?
Not too bad, apart from, as you know, just whinging about having my windscreen smashed by some hoodlum. But apart from that, everything's tickety boo.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We probably shouldn't talk about that because I'll end up swearing a lot. So we better sort of move on about that one. Anyway, okay. So yeah, all right. And so tonight we're going to be talking about, which is the kind of headline of this episode is that everyone starts at zero.
Yep.
So what we're sort of trying to encourage is that, we've talked a little bit about this before, these kind of little motivational sort of episodes where, you're not alone. Everyone starts at the same place on everything. If you want to, I don't know, if you want to write a book, if you want to build a website, if you want to sell T-shirts, if you want to create an Etsy store, if you want to build up 50,000 followers on Instagram, or anything like that in the online world, even in the offline world. Everybody, whatever on their journey, they all start on the same place. There are slight, exceptions to the rule. Some people could have a bigger bank balance to start with. Some people might have a bit more time, than you. But essentially, we all start on the same page, which is, page one. So this one, we're just going to kind of go over a few tips, a few points, stuff that we've done over the past, maybe even talk about some things that work and don't work, some things that may be quite restrictive if you want to try and in order to get ahead and to sort of try and achieve what it is you're trying to achieve. So yeah, that's the kind of topic of tonight.
I think as well, a majority of this podcast is going to be more sort of hopefully motivational, inspirational, because it's, as you say, it's a reminder to let people know that everybody starts somewhere. Because you covered a couple of things in that list you mentioned about writing books and printing T-shirts and stuff like that. If people don't know me as yet, I actually spent 20 odd years working in the building trade. I didn't know anything about printing T-shirts until I started printing T-shirts and selling them on eBay. I had to learn. Up to that point, I knew nothing about that. I was starting from a complete novice beginner. And then I've since gone on to write books and publish them on Amazon. Exactly the same thing, until I actually started to learn how to do all this online stuff and build WordPress websites. I was used to working with power tools and hammers and nails. I didn't know anything about the online world or working. So everything I started from, as you said, ground zero, basically. And everybody's going to be in that same position. So, don't suddenly sit there and think, well, I don't know anything about this, so I can't do it. It's because everybody's like that. I mean, a baby when it's born doesn't even know how to brush its teeth or, put food in its mouth, with a spoon or anything like that. These are things that you learn and taught. And it's the same with everything. It doesn't matter whether you're 30, 60 or 3. You're still going to need to learn, and you start from the beginning.
So, yeah, that's a good point you mentioned there about writing books. I mean, who would have thought maybe 15 years ago that, you'd have books published on Amazon and, stuff like that. I mean, I've wrote a book and I don't claim to be an author at all, but the fact that I've got a book published and people buy it, is an amazing thing. And I knew nothing about. I was pretty average at English at school. I wasn't an top English student. No way. I mean, even for people that read my blog posts now, you'll know my English isn't absolutely perfect. My grammar's no way up there, but it was enough for me to get a message across. I felt that I could share something in the space of, side hustles and, how to earn some extra money on the side. I felt that I could teach that in the form of a written book. So, and like you say, I didn't know the first thing about it, how you format the pages and, how you create the covers and, do you have to put barcodes on it and nothing, didn't know anything about it. But like you say, you just start day one, blank book, literally in this case, start typing away. Before you know it, it's finished. There's no kind of time. I didn't put a time bound on it. I didn't put I must complete this in a month or anything like that. For my book, I know it's a bit of, maybe we can talk about this, but I know that when I wrote my book, it was very much a separate thing to everything else I was doing. It was just something that I would just do in the evening, maybe a few chapters or a chapter or so every now and again, because I knew the kind of context of it and I knew that it was fairly evergreen. I could sort of package it all together at a later date. So I didn't put myself a really, really restrictive time frame on it. And then, like you say, you just get on with it and then you just figure stuff out and you learn things and you ask people if you're stuck and if you have to go on a little course and you go on a little course and, you just do it like that, don't you?
Yeah, and we know now that between the two of us, if we wanted to publish another book, we can with relative ease because we've been through the process, we've been through the system, and very much like you. I mean, I've written different books, published them in the past, sort of short stories, gone finished, gone done. But like this one here, it's like you said, this one's actually a departure from majority of what we're doing with the Freedom Skills Academy and other stuff. But this was a book that I wrote purposely. I think it was more to help me, and I started this, I think, in 2019. Or no, probably 2018. I just started writing it. And I was doing that in my lunch breaks, and I was doing it at certain times whenever I got 5 minutes and I was on the sofa using my smartphone, using Google Docs, which like I said, these are things that I've become to learn. I didn't know anything about them.
Yeah.
And then you get your thing finished and then you move on to the next step. So as we were talking about starting at ground zero, it's the same thing with like creating a website or a business, whatever it is. You're going to start with the concept and then you're going to do the first logical step. And then you wait till that's finished and you move on to the next logical step. Too many people probably try doing everything all at once. But so, for example, if you wanted to be, let's say you wanted to be a consultant or something like that. To be a consultant, you probably need a website to sell from. So you're going to start with creating your idea of your offer. So you work out what it is you want to sort of do. Then you'll start on your website. You'll build your website till it's finished or till it's basically ready, which we suggest using WordPress. And like you say, if you don't know what you're doing, you try and learn. You go and find a course or you go and look on YouTube and learn it. And then you get your website built and then you probably start on your sales page and you just do things in a logical, sort of chronological order. By all means, plan it all out first and think about it, but you don't actually start on number 2 until 1's finished. And you don't worry about number 4 until you've got really number 3 finished. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that's where a lot of people, too many people wanting everything at the start. They see the big list of things and they get
sort of overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, yeah. They get overwhelmed. Whereas, like you say, it's just sort of, it's like walking to work. If you're walking 5 miles, you start up with your first step and then you do your first mile, then your second mile, and your third mile. You just do it, don't you?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, yeah, you mentioned that about, I mean, like I say, I sort of said at the top of the program that I didn't really have a plan when I wrote my book. And that is true. I didn't really. But that's because that wasn't really my main focus at the time. I knew that I would get it done. And I wasn't particularly worried about when I would get it done. I was working on other websites. I was working on other stuff. So it didn't really bother me that much. But if, let's say, you're starting at absolute zero, you don't know what you've never done any of this sort of stuff before. And you want to, this is your first kind of venture, if you like, maybe as a side hustle. I don't know. Maybe you want to start, an eBay shop, or maybe you want to start, I don't know, some Fiverr gigs or, anything, some freelance work. The first thing I think you do need to kind of have a plan. Like you said, then if you're going to become a consultant, you need to kind of know what your offer is going to be. So in terms of, say, eBay, what is your plan? What is your goal? Do you want to use it to, completely transform your life and, go full time and then quit your job? In which case that probably isn't going to happen in the first, month, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even year. Or do you want to use it to, say, bring in an additional £300 a month? Well, if you want to make £300 a month on eBay, you just break it down. How many items do you think you need to list? What sort of things are you going to go after? I don't recommend going all in and trying to learn about everything and anything that sells. You know, pick a little niche, whether it's going to be trainers or jeans or toys or video games, or, you know, pick something, specialize in that for a little bit, and then go out and start sourcing some stuff. And then maybe start with like 100 quid and see if you can flip that into 200 quid, and then go from 200 to 400. And then all of a sudden you start building up an inventory and building up a little stock. And then before you know it, give it a month or 2 months, and you're probably doing it. You're probably already doing it. And then you already know the skills. You already have the skills now. It's just a matter of scale. So it's just a matter of either trading a bit more time or spending a bit more money, or probably both. And then that's literally it. You know, you've done it. You know, and the same goes for, you know, we were talking about, you know, like building a website. If you want to do like a website, we've talked about sales funnels, web page, you know, an offer, landing pages, email lists. If you said all of that in one sentence, it's a bit, oh, there's no way I could do that. You know, I mean, I can see why a lot of people would be put off. But if you sort of said, right, forget about the email list stuff for the moment, go in and buy yourself a domain, get yourself some hosting, and literally just concentrate on building 3 pages, okay? Which, as we know, that could be your offer page, your middle segue page, and then your thank you page, right? Just concentrate on building those 3 things.
Yep.
Which, if you break it all down, you could probably do 1 a week easily, you know, even from scratch. You know, just learn it, get online, watch some tutorials. And then before you know it, you've kind of, well, that bit's done. And then you can kind of move on to the next bit. What's the next bit? Well, I need something. So it'd be an offer. So then you start learning about how to craft, you know, simple PDF reports, or, you know, a list, or a little short video series, whatever it is. And then once you've built that, you've got a product now. So you've got something that people will want. And then you go on to the final stage, which is tying it all together and putting the opt-in form in, and then building the sequence, which, again, once you break it all down into steps like that, it doesn't sound that bad, does it? And it isn't. It isn't that bad.
No, I mean, if you actually sat down and spent time and figured out everything that you needed, let's say you had a list of 100 different items, then you could actually sit there and, like you say, you're a bit overwhelmed and think, Christ, that's. But if you take all those 100, I mean, let's say you broke them into extra lists of 5. So then you're only focusing on list A, which has got 5 things. And once you finish that list A, you move on to list B. So basically, then you have the big list, break them into small lists. And like you said, you could actually break them into specifics. So you're starting with the website. So we'd be like, get your domain, register your hosting, build the website, 3 pages. Once you've done that, you move on to list B, which is product creation and product offer, that, and writing the sales copy. That could be list B, like you say, and then move on to list C, which is your email or your opt-in. So you break it down into easier, manageable steps, because otherwise you just suddenly look at everything and you think, no chance, absolutely no chance.
No chance.
And it's I mean, like you say, you could break it down into days as well, or an hour's work, or just make it into small, manageable steps. There was something I just remembered. I can't remember what we call it. It's a psychological issue, and that is what lots of people have when they start something new. They get excited, they get enthusiastic to get into it. They throw themselves into it. They get working, all excited. They might get a bit of they see the website build and think, "Oh, that's very good. That's excellent." They get the sales page written, they get the lead magnet written, and they're going great and they're getting excited. But then 3 months have passed and they've not necessarily had a sale, or they've not had much growing. They get really it can get quite sort of negative and depressed. And it's kind of like the valley of the shadow of darkness or something. You hit a wall, and that's when lots of people quit. But what people don't realize, that this is actually a psychological thing, is you start up like that. It's like a graph. You go up, then it drops, and then it goes back up, because you get to the point where you think, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm not doing this." You start having self-doubt. I can remember when I was training as a joiner, I'd been doing it for quite a while, and I just didn't seem to be getting the grit. I didn't think I was getting it. Then I remember a few months later, I just seemed to be doing something, and it just sort of came to me, and I realized it was like, actually, I am now doing this.
Exactly.
It has come to me. And sometimes you've got to understand that, yes, you probably will be enthusiastic and excited, throw yourself in it. But you also have to understand that there will be a period of sort of doubt and demoralization. But you have to realize that you've got to work through it and keep at it, no matter how low it looks or feels, because the only way you can go is back up.
Yeah.
Because eventually, everything becomes second nature. You start to understand more. You start to be able to do more, and then things start to change.
Absolutely. I think everyone can relate to that. It must be. I mean, me and you have definitely related to that. Where we've definitely gone through highs and lows, 100%, and that's the way it is. That is the way it is. And
I don't think expect it.
Yeah, and that'll happen across. I think that happens in the whole journey, even if you're. Even if you're making like 100K a month, there'll still have periods where you'll go, "Oh, why are we doing this right?" Do you know what I mean? Where, because everything is relative, and it all moves sort of with it. But I think that's a really important point. Yeah, I mean, I say
when you're at the beginning, it's going to be harder. Like you say, if you're at $200,000 a month and you go through a slump, at least you're not so bad. But you've kind of got you're seasoned. But from the beginning, people they get excited and then they forget or don't realize there is going to be a slump.
Yeah,
you just have to expect it and carry on.
Another thing I want to mention quickly, which is I know a massive issue for a lot of people, and it used to have the phrase "shiny object syndrome." I don't know if it's still branded about. Basically, this means we're all in this game, and this doesn't necessarily just apply to online world. It is huge in the online world, but it's everywhere, and that is basically if you're working on something. Let's say, for example, we've just talked about now. You want to build your own product. I don't know, build an email list and sell it online. The chances are you've probably done a little bit of research elsewhere. You might even be on one or two email lists of your own. You may have even signed up to a few offers, bought some products, whatever. Most of the time, when you're doing if you do a course or if you do some training, it's usually the same. Okay. It doesn't matter. You can buy it from 10 different people. And the nuts and bolts of it are pretty much the same. So what we get, and this is a problem I've had this for many times, is you get this thing called shiny object syndrome, where basically you get sidetracked so easy by the next best thing that lands in your inbox or that comes through the door or that you see in the paper or that you see an ad on YouTube for. And you automatically think, oh, that's it. This is the savior. This is what's going to help me out. And 99% of the time, it probably doesn't. We're all guilty of it. So you click on it, you buy it. And the problem is that may well be good and it may well be a solid course. I'm not knocking everything. There are some really great stuff out there. And the problem is, though, by doing that, you've just completely lost your momentum and your focus on your other thing, which you were doing. And now you've moved on to something else. You know what I mean? 1 minute you might be doing, I don't know, football trading or something. You might be getting really good at it. And then you have a couple of bad days. And then all of a sudden this thing comes through which says, you don't want to be doing football trading. That's, 2020. You want to be selling Amazon books on, Kindle. Oh, okay, I'll do that then. So then you move over to that and you've got to start again. And then you get halfway through that. And then another offer comes through your inbox. And then you move on to, I don't know, selling T-shirts on Amazon. And it's so easy to keep doing that. I 100% hands up have been guilty of that in the past. And I know loads of people that are. And so I guess the thing is, none of these things are going to go away, right? If you want to do that later. But at least try and finish one of the things that you're doing. Get to the point where you can at least say, I've really given it a go. And it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but at least get to that point first before you start diverting yourself, onto other things.
the thing with the shiny new object thing is that it often destroys all the good work that you've already done, like you just said. I'm in a position now where I'm buying books and reading stuff which will enhance what I'm doing already. It's like, you know, I'm doing this, but I'm not going to suddenly go off and start necessarily forex trading or you know, and not doing this. I'm trying to stick with what I've got because I'm trying to be strong, like you say. But you must have been reading my mind, because what you talked about football trading there, I was thinking of an analogy to sort of explain the shiny object syndrome. Is that if you think of Homer Simpson playing soccer, playing football, and he's running with the ball, and all the defenders are behind him, he's just basically running towards the goal. The keeper's there, you know, he's there, he's got his target right in front of him, and as he's running, he suddenly turns and sees donuts and stops and goes, donuts, and runs off. Then basically, you know, the defender comes, takes the ball away, and Homer's on the side there stuffing himself. He's lost the goal. He's not reached what he was aiming for. Obviously, Homer Simpson will be happy with the donut, but that's kind of what it is. You're sort of running to the goal, you're working hard, and you get in there, and then suddenly it's just, and off you go. Everything comes to a crashing halt. It reminds me of that South African story, The Acres of Diamonds, where the guy was digging in his yard, wanted to become very wealthy for diamonds. He couldn't find any, so he decided, that's it. I'm going to go elsewhere and buy a farm and find diamonds. And he didn't find any, and he came back, and the bloke he'd sold the farm to was wealthy because he found the big hole, and he decided to dig another foot. And then down there was this huge diamond. And basically the guy says, where do you get your wealth from? He says, that hole you started digging, I basically dug a little bit further, and there it was.
There's a picture of that in there. It's like there
is, yes.
We've talked about that before, yeah. I mean,
it's very easy to get distracted.
There are thousands of ways to make money online. Jesus, I mean, we don't claim to be like, you know, the oracles of all of them, but there are thousands of ways to make money online. You know, you don't have to do all the stuff we mentioned, all the stuff we've written about before, and like eBay and all that. I mean, I write on the Side Income Man blog. There's loads of methods and ways on there. I don't do them all. You know what I mean? I've known about a few of them. I've done a handful of them. I do probably one or two fairly consistently, and then the rest of them I've just sort of learned a little bit about it and written about it, you know, or interviewed somebody. You know, and it's the same with, you know, some of the stuff that you've done over the years. You know, you've become more of an expert in certain things than certainly what we've done in other stuff, and that's just it. And like you say, you just pick one thing to begin with, especially if you're starting out from zero. Just pick one thing. And I think as well, even not monetary ways. Let's say you want to start an Instagram account, or, you know, a social media account. You want to grow it to, say, 10,000 followers. You've got this imaginary number in your head that, you know, let's say you want to grow it to 10,000 followers. Well, that takes consistency, and that takes showing up every day. That does. You can't just, you know, put 2 posts up and then sit back and do nothing. You have to show up every day. Certainly on Instagram, you have to be doing stories every day. You have to be posting every day. You have to be interacting with every comments. It will take. You can do it. It can be an hour a day. You could do it in an hour a day, but it means doing it every day for an hour. You know, and then literally growing that out. Probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something. So, you know, it does take consistency, showing up, and one thing.
It does take a while. Thing, being a copywriter, I know full well that lots of the sales products are written to make things look really attractive, and they will use the best case study possible. There have been people who've made money quickly. We do live in a world where the technology we have now is incredible. I mean, you know, we went raving in the 90s. If you were to tell me that I'd be stood in a room talking to you 200-300 miles away live, you know, you'd be thinking, well, we never had that technology. No. Now it's a thing. We do it on our mobile phones. The technology we have is incredible. So it's speeded up a lot of things, and it's given us the opportunity to connect with, you know, millions of people around the world. We can make a sale automatically. You know, you sit at home and suddenly get a notification on your email saying that you've made a sale of a book, and you didn't need to do anything else. So these things are incredible. So I think there's an expectation there that people think that you're just going to suddenly go online and everything's super fast. It's not necessarily. There's still the old traditional, like you say, values involved where you have to build a business. You have to give it enough time.
Yeah.
You simply do need to give it enough time. People stop too soon.
Mm.
But then that also could be down to, has there been too many copywriters, too many of these sales products where they've tried to, their promise is, you'll make 20 grand within the next 14 days doing this one thing.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case, unless, of course, you've got yourself in a position where you could. Like you've got a 10,000 strong email list and you're selling an affiliate product at 3,000, you're getting 50% commission.
No, you do it easy. Yeah.
Then maybe you will. But, when you're starting out from fresh, no chance.
That's the thing. I mean, like you say, but then there are scenarios where, luck is on the side, and,
it can
for every probably, unfortunately, for every 500 people that maybe don't get the success because they haven't finished it, or they haven't stuck with it, or they haven't done it properly, or they've given up too early, there will be one or two that don't, and they do all right out of it. And that is what that is how the sales letters, that's how sales letters are written. It's a bit of a grey area. I'm not really a fan of it, but that's how they're written, and that's nothing new. You can't just have a complete go at the online world because you don't like the way a sales copy is written. No one's forcing you to buy anything ever. And that train of thought stems back all the way from copy in newspapers and, I don't know, centuries ago. It's what works and it's what happens. But I was talking about people getting lucky in that, and it does happen, doesn't it? I mean, like, how many times? I mean, I remember just recently dabbling in crypto. I still do quite a bit now, but I remember getting on a coin way too late, and it was, I sort of felt like I'd missed the boat, and I was like really angry, and I put some money in, and it was like meant to be quite a quick sort of in and out, and it done okay. It sort of tenfolded, so it was fine. But there were people that got like 100x on that. Do you know what I mean? If it would have been 3 or 4 days earlier, it could have been 100x. Which if you put a lot of money in, it's almost game changing. But I know, but you don't just quit and say, "Oh, that's it. Now I'm never doing that again. That's never going to work." Well, that's just one example of it. You know what I mean? That was, I got a bit deflated and a bit annoyed about it. But you don't. It doesn't mean you throw the towel in. You just move on.
But the thing is, though, you still did it, whereas a lot of people, oh no, it doesn't work or they won't. So you still did it and made some money out of it. The majority, a lot of people who struggle, who don't succeed, are, like you say, the ones who don't do anything in the first place. Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the 500 people who don't do something, the 1 or 2 who do. Those are the people who become the case studies on the sales letters because they carry on. It's just simple that they, as you said, they decided that they know that they need 100,000 Instagram followers or something, so they stick with it and they'll do whatever's needed possible. They don't go like 2 weeks in and they've only at like 500 and think this isn't working. It is very demoralizing and it's kind of hard, but they stick with it and they get it, and then they get to that point where they suddenly boom, because there's an old saying, basically, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So yes, there is luck and there is timing, there is certain things that happen that it's like you and I, we are very lucky and fortunate, as in the fact that we are relatively born, we were born in the UK, even though it seems a bit of a sewage hole at the moment, especially the sea. But we are lucky to be here, whereas we could be in another country where we don't have the infrastructure or we're not persecuted, and we have. Oh yeah,
we're incredibly lucky. Yeah.
So we do have the luck on our side in that respect, and so there is always an element of luck in some things, but majority of people's success is down to the fact that they just, as you say, they find something they're good at or something they want to do, and they work at it without distraction of other things, and they stick with it. I remember Michael Owen, the ex-England and Liverpool striker, was asked many years ago, I think he was playing golf at the time, and he was playing, and they says, you're really good at this. And he says, yeah, I only play games I'm good at. He likes virtually probably all sports, but he focused only on the 1 or 2 that he was really good at. I mean, obviously he's a competitive person, but he knew where his strengths lied, and he also knew not to waste his time doing all the other rubbish. I mean, that's probably, like you say, is probably a discussion for another podcast in the future, like outsourcing, focusing your attention on one or two things. But that's what he did. He just knew what he wanted to do, and he just stuck with it. And like most Premiership footballers, worked hard at it, stuck with it.
I remember one of our first ventures quite a few years back was when we used to build and sell the sort of niche viral kind of satirical news sites, and we had one. In fact, we've still got it, I think, and we used to run ads to it, and neither of us knew anything about Facebook ads, did we? Nothing. And we started literally just dabbling. We were like, should we just try this? We're like, yeah, okay. And we just do like $2 or $5, whatever it was. And that didn't work. Okay, let's try another one. $5. No, that didn't work. Okay, let's try another one. And then it might have been on like, ad number 13. And then we, instead of spending the $5, we spent the $5, but we looked in our ad account and we were like, dude, that made $14. So we were like, hang on a minute. All right, okay, let's slowly scale it. And all of a sudden we'd go to like 10 and it'd be like, we made 30. And then we'd go to 50 and then, we made 100. So before you know it, we were spending like, I can't remember, but we scaled it to a ridiculous level where it was something like $200 a day on ads and like $400 back on ad revenue on it every day. And we wouldn't have known any of that had we not have just decided, should we just throw some money at some ads? You know what I mean? Just literally throw some money at some ads, see what happens. Have a look at the data. Oh, that one seemed okay. Okay, let's write more posts about that, and then spend more money on that. And then all of a sudden, we had a little bit of a business model, and we could kind of scale it to a degree. I mean, everything changed. The whole landscape changed, but we managed to get a good sort of year or so from kind of doing that. And then like you say, and then from that you can build a platform, and then you've got some experience, and then you can talk about that. You can share your stories. You can, write about other stuff, and the whole thing kind of links together.
It's all built on itself. Like you said there, we not only did we learn about Facebook ads, but by learning about Facebook ads, we also learned what content was quite good. Like you said, we then decided to write a couple more of these. I think you wrote a nurses, a load of pictures, funny pictures of nurses, went absolutely crazy. So that was it. We then did doctors, we did plumbers, we did the army.
All the professions we could kind of work out.
And we had a bit of a killing from that, didn't we? As they say, these gurus in America, we were crushing it. And like you say, until it all the whole system sort of changed platform. But no, we had a great run with that. That was fantastic. But as you said, up to that point, I'd been spending several years working as a joiner, and then it wasn't until I started getting into internet marketing and writing that I learned these things and built websites that took us up to that stage where we were able to. We met online through blogging, and then put our skills together, and then that all came about from everything that we'd learned over several years. But we all started, as we said, this is what this podcast is about. We started at ground zero with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever about writing, using social media, Facebook ads, or building websites.
And I've not done any any formal qualifications in any of this. I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have I don't have like I say, I don't claim to be a top writer or anything like that. But, as long as you can kind of present information in a way which people can relate to it and understand. And everything's available now on YouTube, everything. If you want to learn how to do something, it'll be on there to a degree. You'll be able to get started at least. And then if you want a little bit more help, perhaps from, some expert help or whatever, then you can kind of seek out, people that you sort of take a shine to and, pitch them up, and they'll probably have something to offer. But to get started, you can do it all for free, can't you, really? You can learn how to do it all for free, I mean.
qualifications and certifications are only really important if you're going to be in a job which is highly regulated, such as like a brain surgeon, or something where people's lives or
lawyers and stuff like that.
But basically, as in like with websites, copywriting, the truth of the matter is that the results speak louder than the qualifications. There are people who are qualified engineers, but probably companies will probably earn less from them than from the person who's not qualified, but churns out exactly the same work twice as fast and does twice as much stuff.
I don't like sometimes. We don't brand figures about on this podcast, and we do that for a reason, and that's because I don't like doing it, and because I don't like it. I never used to like it when people used to say it to me. But some of the figures of some of the stuff that you've sold, whether it be through the company you work for, like because you don't work, you work for yourself, but you're your client, shall I say? Some of the stuff that some of the figures of what you've quoted before, and some of the stuff that I've sold over the years, I don't like to break it down and tell people that realistically you can make 4 figures really by doing probably 3 days work, and then your hands off, and then the rest of it just comes in. I don't like branding it about, but it is doable. I mean, we've heard of email lists that churn out tens of thousands in monthly revenue, and that's just from writing emails. That there's passive income streams that we've talked about before, and we've got them ourselves that are running, and they just run like clockwork. You don't have to do anything about it. And I don't want to I don't like to sort of throw figures out there, but there is options, and if you want to get involved in this kind of stuff, then you can do it, and it is all a matter of just sort of taking that first step, isn't it? That leap of faith, as they say.
Sometimes though, you need to show figures because whether we like it or not, money is the result. It is the result. I mean, there is different results. So if you're trying to promote a product or a service where you can get 10,000 Instagram followers, then that's nothing to do with money. But if you actually did get 10,000 Instagram followers within a month, it's the same principle. You're just using it because if it's real and genuine, it's proof, and it's social proof. And obviously you've got to do that to let people know that you do know that stuff. And we have, as you said, we've got passive income streams that are earning money. I write emails every day that make money. I've spent half an hour writing an email for someone who paid me basically the equivalent of a week's wage just for half an hour's work. And I remember one email that, to be fair, the email that I wrote also landed me my client.
Yeah, so there you go.
And that's generated a lot of money for me because I just wrote this email in a specific way. So we know this stuff, and at the same time, we are trying to tell people that these things are doable and achievable. But also at the same time, we're trying to say is that it takes years. Because I used to work for a media company many years ago, and I was doing the email marketing. And when they did promotions, I used to see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I mean, there's probably even millions going through the email marketing and mailing marketing in like a week for certain products. They were high price, but I've seen people earn huge amounts of money in the space of a week. Firsthand, I've seen it. I know it's doable. But the good thing is that what we try and do here with our podcast and the Freedom Skills Academy is give you the freedom, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to earn $1 million. You could probably actually earn 1,000, but not have to have the job. Freedom can mean different things, but but we also want to convey the fact that realistically, that you are going to start from ground zero. It can be tough, and it may take a while to do it. It's doable. Just don't expect to do it in the next 14 days or the next 30 days. Do you know what I mean? You may get lucky. You may work your socks off. We've talked about this before in previous podcasts. There is a person who's got 2 children and a poorly wife who goes to work full time, probably only gets an hour in the evening. Then there's an 18-year-old who's basically left school, living at home. He's got the whole day to work on the project. So sometimes, you will get someone who will just storm it, and they will look fantastic. and it is great to see that. And if it's on the sales letter as a case study or you're seeing it as an example, that's fine. But just also realize the fact that you're probably in a completely different situation than he is.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point to end on. I think we should probably wrap up there. Loads of stuff in there. We've talked about quite a lot of this before. I'll try and link some of these episodes, the previous ones. I'll try and link them in the show notes. But yeah, that would sort of be probably a sort of closing point for me would be that, you know what I mean? Just sort of set yourself some small goals along the way and, you know, be realistic, but then on the same night, you've got to be a bit ambitious as well. You know, don't just put, you know, something really, really easy that you'll achieve in the first hour. You know, put something realistic that's going to push you a bit. But on this, you know, you've got to be a bit ambitious, but within reason. So, but yeah, so set some goals. And just remember that, you know, everyone starts on the same page, really. Anything closing to add?
Basically, it's sort of the same thing as you, really. Just sort of, get excited. Know that everything's achievable. We are actually in the greatest time of mankind for making money online, from home, from anywhere, using a mobile phone. You know, it's the greatest time in human history. But just make sure that you will expect the fact that you will get down, find it hard at times, but you will work through it. Expect that. Don't give up. Carry on. Don't get distracted by all the shiny objects until you know, for example, for the fact that what you're working on is never going to work. Then fine, don't flog a dead horse. But too many people, as we've said, they decide to walk away before they just get to the summit. You could just be an inch or two away from success. So don't give up. Basically, just as you break it down into steps and stick with it and carry on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much for listening. My name's been John Banks. I've been with Andy Lehman. You can find us both over at the freedomskillsacademy.com. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. I'll speak to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.